Okay, what we're going to do right now is we're moving into a new part of the workshop, and what we're going to do is evaluate and clean the cocoons. So Sherry and I will be doing that, so we are going to get started.
Okay, hi everyone. This are some of the tools that you're going to be needing for doing this process. You will need bleach and a measuring spoon for the actual washing process, a dowel or a skewer to check the tubes in case you're not sure if there's a bee in there or not. Some of them are kind of tricky to see, but if you find a blockage, you know you have something. Some tweezers or forceps to pull the paper liner out of the protective cardboard tube. Scissors for cutting if you need to get the tube started. Some scrapers for getting things out. Magnifying glass for really looking at things closely. Something for swishing the bees in the bleach water, not the bees, the cocoons in the bleach water, and to lift them up afterwards. And then something to put your cocoons in to evaluate when this process is all done.
Alright, let's just move this out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and talk about some other things here. So what we are using today are these paper tubes that have cardboard liners. The paper tubes are a good way to go in that the bee will go into the cocoon, will go into the tube and bring in its pollen and nectar and lay its egg. It'll build its mud partition. So this is a good way to go. Another way that you could approach this, instead of using the paper liners, is to use these wood blocks. So these are made from mason bees, and you'll notice that each one of these has like a groove or an alley in it. If you look at it from the front here, notice the holes. These are like the same sort of thing. These are like the same 5/16 of an inch diameter hole, and the bee will go in and will once again bring in its pollen and nectar, lay its egg, put its mud partition up, and continue that process through this whole 6-inch block. The nice thing about these is that when you go to clean your cocoons, all you have to do is pop one of these open, and all the cocoons are right there, and you just do it again and again and just go through the process of cleaning them that way, as opposed to if you are using the paper liners, you will have to pull each one out and then open up the tube. So it's a little bit more of a process if you do that. Now there's different things that you can do in terms of the tubes. You can pre-cut them. So you can use like one of these letter openers and just go right down the tube and pre-cut it. And in that way they will snap shut. They're a fairly thick tube here, paper tube, and then just stick it right back in to here, and it's all set to go. Or something else you can do is, if you notice when you get these, you'll notice that there are spirals, so you can go ahead and just spiral, tear them open in a spiral, and that's a pretty easy process too. One other thing, and it might be just the easiest thing to do in general, is to go ahead and you can soak these. And so you would put them in water for about 10 minutes, and what you're going to notice is that the glue will just dissolve. So that's a really good way to go too. By doing it in that way, you may think, oh my gosh, I don't want to keep the bees in the water for 10 minutes. But remember that our mason bees are a native bee. They do live above ground. They're not below ground nesters, but 70% of our native bees do live below ground. And think about the water moving through the soil, so they are at different times getting wet. It's not going to hurt the cocoons. We don't recommend using bamboo. It's really hard to get the right diameter. The bees are fairly particular. They like that 5/16 of an inch, and it's really hard to find anything in bamboo. You may find it with some, but it really has a lot of variation in diameter. And also in the bamboo, it's divides up into these sections, you really do need to have a 6-inch piece for the bamboo. Another thing that you'll see people using are the wood blocks. And the wood blocks are okay if you are able to put a paper insert into them. So that would be okay, but just to reuse a wood block year after year after year, it's going to become a pretty dirty house for the mason bee, and then it's going to get filled through time with pollen mites and other things. So we don't recommend using the wood blocks unless you use paper inserts inside them. So Sherry's going to just show you now how to evaluate some of the cocoons.
Okay, so here we have quite the display. These are paper liners that were put inside of a house without any protection with the cardboard liner things. So it's not good. You can see that it's not good. We have several holes here in, like this one here. Okay, I've marked it for you so that you can see. Can you see these are exit places of things you don't want in your tubes, and you can see all the different holes in there and stuff. So I went ahead and I opened it so you could see it is just bad business in there. Nothing has survived. It's just, they're all yuck. It's just nothing there. So
can you see the holes in the cocoons too, Sherry?
Wow, let's see. Oh, shoot. No, they're just mummified. They're just gone. Oh yes, there you go. There's a hole right there. Can you see that hole? Yeah. So it's all bad. It's all bad. None of these are going to be any good, and it's just a shame. Those are no good. So these are good though. So this is what you want, are these. So you're going to take your tube that you have, and you're going to pull the liner out, which can sometimes be snug, but that's okay. Just keep trying. You'll get it. Come on, babe. Pick the bad one. Come on. Oh, there we go. Okay. And these tubes can be used 3 to 4, 4 to 5 years. As long as they're still in good condition, you can reuse these. So you take and then you open up. I have pre-slit this one, so it's made it easier, somewhat easier. And you're going to open it up, and you're just, everyone is a mystery. Just a mystery. This is exciting. This is a good one. There's lots of good things in there. So then you take it, and you can see, can you see what's going on in here? Let's see if I hold it open. Maybe Mary can describe what's going on in here.
Okay, so if you look at the very end of the tube, there is a, let me get this a little closer so we can see right up here. There's 2 pieces of mud. So at the very end of the tube, the mason bee has made a thicker mud partition to help keep out the any predators that might try to enter. So that will be this piece right here, and that's at the end of the tube. But then she leaves a little airspace, and she puts in another piece of mud partition. So there's a mud partition at the end, an airspace, and another mud partition. And so sometimes it's thought that maybe that's so that as the predators, like a bird, might go ahead and poke at it, it opens it up, the first mud layer, but then it finds out that, oh, nothing's there, just an airspace, so it doesn't try to proceed to go ahead. If you look, remember we said in our talk that there's a whole pattern to how the bees are laid. So the females will go to the back of the cocoon, of the nesting tube, and then the males will be at the front. And you can notice a difference in size. The bigger female cocoons, do you want to hold that closer up, Sherry?
I'll try.
And then the smaller male cocoons. And notice between, maybe this one's here better for
That's a really
demonstrating.
good one.
Yeah, I think this is probably a better one. And you'll notice the bigger female ones towards the back, and then the smaller ones. And then notice in between each cocoon is that mud partition that we've talked about.
So then once you've opened your tube, you take your scraper and squish them out. They're very tough. You're not going to hurt them. Just still be careful, but you're pretty good. And then, oh, see, we got somebody there. But anywho, you can tell the difference in the male and the female by size of the cocoon. So you got smaller ones and larger ones. That's a larger, small. Look how little these are. These would be the boys. The boys are little. That's probably a boy there too. Not sure about that one. But anyway, so that's what. So you just go through this process through all your tubes, and then you go through the process of washing them, and that will be next.
Well, why don't we go ahead and open up some more in
Okay.
case we find some pollen mites or some fun things, some few surprises.
Well, we got a few guys crawling around here, but I don't know who they are. So you evaluate, and I will open here.
Okay, so this tube right here, I can see is, if I use that chopstick that we have, you're gonna see, I can look in here, I see some things in here, but not all the way. So you can see I can put the chopstick in, it goes in about this far. So the first part of this does not have any bees in it. The bees look like they're going to be starting right about there. But I'm a little suspicious about this tube in that there's a lot of yellow here, which makes me think that there could be pollen mites. So let me get a scissors and I'll open that.
Oh, and we should note also, all this little black stuff that you see in here, that's bee poop. That's bee poop. Yeah, it's okay. They like a clean house. It's very important to remember. And so, yeah, you're going to find all kinds of stuff in there. So there's that one. We'll do another one. Sometimes they're hard to pull out, but just give it your all. Each one is a mystery. Oh, this one looks good too. We're getting lucky. Oh, look at that. Look at that right there. That's a pollen, would you call them a pollen tube or a pollen?
The pollen meal?
Yeah. Nobody developed there. Oof. It's a messy job. Female. Male, male, male. Don't know what that is. Okay. Continuing. Actually, this is kind of fun. Oh, there's the slit. Okay. Oh yeah, this is a good one. Okay. So you just keep doing this process. And this is wonderful. Oh, there's another pollen thingy bob. Okay. So there. Is that enough for now?
Let's see if we can find, yeah, I'd like to find some pollen mites so that people can see how they look. Let's open a few more. So let's take a
this
look
is
here. That looks pretty good, don't you think?
Yeah. Sure, a lot going on in there. Okay. When we did this before, we came across, oh dear, where are those, oh here they are, the little pollen sacs. Or what are you calling them?
Just the pollen nectar meal, the little loaf.
It's what she put in there, but for some reason the little larvae never developed. Just pure pollen. Pretty amazing.
Do you want to show the leaf cutter?
Oh, sure. Okay. In one of the tubes that we opened was leaf cutter bees. Now, these are also very good to have. And it's found its way into the tube with the mason bees and did this. So there are actually bees in there. They're at their various stage, and they're good. Leaf cutter bees are very good. And it's recommended to take, if you do come across these when you're all done, to put them back in the tube and put them back outside, because they haven't finished their process yet, and they are very good to have in your yard. So that's a leaf cutter bee. You can see they've rolled up leaves. Pretty amazing. pretty amazing.
They cut these perfect circles of leaves. They're in the same family as the mason bee, but instead of using mud to create their partitions, they cut these perfect circles of leaves and then pack that into the spot instead of mud for the partition between the different chambers. And let's see here. So I am mostly just finding...
They're good.
They're pretty
which
good.
is really good news. I mean,
Yeah,
this is
that's
exciting.
what you want to see. Healthy cocoons.
Oh, this one is only partially. So she ran out of oomph or something. Oh. Okay, so, all right. We probably have enough here
to go ahead.
to do our thing. All right.
All right. Right, so what we'd like to do now is show you how to clean and then store the cocoon. So we're going to bring over some water here. Okay, we've got 2 containers here. So we have rinse water here, and then we're going to put some bleach water in here. So let me go ahead and pour some water in here. So it's a gallon of water that we're going to use. And then I'll put in 1 to 2 tablespoons of bleach. We really don't have, just in this little demo, we don't have that many bees right now, cocoons to clean, but I just wanted to show you how you use a gallon of water with 1 to 2 tablespoons here of bleach. Alright, so this is mixed, and now what we're going to do is go ahead and put in the cocoons that we just harvested right now, and I think what you're going to see is how quickly they start to clean. So go ahead, Sherry, if you want to stir them up.
Okay, just push them back and forth. You can use your hand too. But
so you're going to see the mud partitions are going to drop to the bottom. In this process, if there were any pollen mites on them, the bleach will go ahead and kill the pollen mites or any other things that might harm them.
And they're fairly tough. It feels they float, which is good. But you just kind of like gently whoosh them a little bit, and stuff will fall off. So this is. But yeah, look at all the debris in the bottom. That's what I get off the little baby guys here. So you swish them, and you can leave them in there for
a couple minutes,
2 minutes or so. But we won't go through that because of that. We need to get these out and show you the process, and then you put them into clean water.
So we're kind of accelerating the time a little bit on this. We're just, as Sherry said, just trying to show the process here. But this in the bleach would be a couple minutes, and then we want to make sure they're nicely rinsed in the fresh water. Sometimes we even rinse them twice. We use a couple different water baths.
Yeah, look, all that debris in there, that's all off of them. So we'll take that away.
That.
Okay, then you want to make sure to get all of the bleach off. So you get nice fresh water and swish them around some more. Still a little bit more stuff is coming off, but I know I'm getting all the badness off. At least attempting to get all the badness off. And then you do that one more time, and then anyway, so when you feel like you've got it nice and rinsed, then you remove them from here. Ooh, little floaters. I think that other tool would work better.
With this?
Yeah, that one would work better.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, and then so you just get them out and onto a nice dry paper towel. And let them.
You're going to let them air dry for a couple hours. And I should say we're doing this in a cool room. It's not super hot. We don't want the bees to think that it's springtime and think about starting to emerge. So we're doing it in a pretty cooler room right now.
Okay, there they are, all washed up.
Okay, so now we have these nicely cleaned bees, and they really do look nice and clean. And what we're going to do is just let them dry. And so now let's think about what we're going to do, because now it's October. We're going to let them get nice and dry, and then we have to store them through the winter months. So what we're going to do is put them in a container. We'll put a paper towel on the bottom. We're going to put them in like a Tupperware container, and we're going to put them in a refrigerator. So ideally you get a refrigerator that is not frost-free, because the frost-free cycle is a dehydrating cycle. It'll dehydrate your bees. So if you do only have a frost-free refrigerator, you can use the crisper drawer and put them in a Tupperware box that has holes that are drilled in the top so it's ventilated, and then put a little cup in there with a sponge, a wet sponge, to make sure the humidity is just right. So the temperature for the bees, really you want it anywhere from 34 to 40 degrees, and I believe it's about 60% humidity, and you'll want to get a gauge that will show the temperature and the humidity so you can keep them at that constant temperature. The bees will sit in that container, and you'll check them through the winter, making sure that you have the right temperature and humidity. There is some things, if you do put them in a refrigerator with your other foods, there's some things that aren't great for them. Apples can off-gas and can kill the mason bees. Also, if you have cheeses in your refrigerator, the spores from the cheese can get released and can end up on the mason bees, and pretty soon your little mason bees are going to look like blue cheese. So if they do get covered in mold, you can go ahead and just do this whole process again, where you wash them again in bleach and then rinse them and then put them back out. It's not going to harm them. The cheese spores are not going to harm them. So now let's kind of accelerate this process again. They've been in your refrigerator all winter now, and now we're going to think about, okay, we've got to get them out. Let's say that it is now the middle of March, and you want to ideally put them out when the temperatures are right around, they say 57 degrees. They're 57 degrees for several days. The males will start to emerge first. So think about putting them out definitely by the middle of March, and kind of look around. You want to have a food source for them too. So put them out just as your fruit trees or other plants that you have in your yard are going to start to blossom. So about a week before blossom. Remember though, these mason bees cannot stay in this as cocoons in your refrigerator all spring, and you think, oh, I think I would like to use those for my summer garden. I'm going to release them then. As the months go on in this cocoon, the mason bee will have gone a long period without eating nectar. So it's really, they're diminishing their fat supply. So they won't be viable if you wait, like for example, June or July to release them. They're a spring bee, and they're there to pollinate your spring plants and flowers and fruit trees. So at this point, Sherry's going to just show you some ideas about how to release them. And this is an idea that we saw on YouTube and thought was pretty fun.
Okay, so you're going to take, this is just one idea, and it's really quite clever. Okay, so you've got your nice, clean, new tubes all set into your box like this. They're empty, clean, everything's clean, fresh to go. So one idea that I saw was you can take a empty toilet paper roll and staple the end shut. Oh, get in there. 2 staples on the end, like that. So you just close up the tube, see, like that. Then you take your cocoons, your little cocoons.
You want to just stick some in?
Oh, come here, little babies, sure. And you know, just, I don't know, dozen, maybe a few more, but I wouldn't, you know, don't crowd it or anything like that. Then you get them in there in the back, pinch it in the middle, and give it one staple, whoops, one staple in the middle, so they still have exit place on both sides. Make sure that's nice and open, both sides like that. And then you just take your tube of cocoons, put it in the very back of your clean house, mounted in the proper location and height, and voila, they will come out, and then they will go out and forage and come back and start building new baby cocoons in there, and the process starts all over. And then at a certain time, when you realize all the cocoons are gone, just simply take the tube out. Don't leave it in there. And there you go.
One last thing that we do want to bring up is that when you go ahead and buy Mason bees, if you do need to go ahead and get starter bees and you know there's a nursery that is selling bees, remember that a lot of times you can end up getting a tube, but you don't really know what's in it. And you don't know, is that Houdini fly in it, or is it loaded with pollen mites? So the idea is, if you go to a nursery and you want to purchase your Mason bees, don't buy a tube. Instead, buy just live cocoons, because then you know what you have and you aren't bringing things into your backyard that you don't want in your yard. And it's a good idea, as you are done with this whole process. We have about 4 or 5 boxes from the Catalyst Garden that we're going to be going through and cleaning the cocoons. Be sure and count them. Know how many cocoons you got and write it down. Keep records. So maybe this year you take a look and you say, okay, we got 300 or 400 cocoons. Let's say we counted 400 cocoons. Maybe the next year you count and you see, oh wow, look at, we put out more tubes. We got about 450 or 500 cocoons. We had a really good year. We're doing something right. The number of Mason bees is increasing. But let's say that you started with 400 cocoons and then you find that when you go to open them, there's only, let's just imagine, only 200. Well, you know something's not right. And so you want to really keep these records. You want to evaluate then what isn't right. Maybe you had a lot of pollen mites that wiped them out. Maybe you had some other factors that are contributing to the fact that they didn't survive. You want to make sure that you have a good clay source for them. You also would want to make sure that you are putting them out and there's plenty of blossoms for them to find food. So you may need to divide them and move them around, check your locations, things like that. So with that, Sherry and I are complete. We are going to answer questions that are in the chat. If we don't get to your question, we will go ahead. Any questions we don't get to today, we are just going to go ahead and answer via email. So every question will be answered. I'm not sure if we're going to have time for every single one of them to be answered today. So thanks for joining us, and I hope that you will be around next winter months when we do our winter series of Through the Garden Gate. Thank you.